So, okay, so I'll be Dr. Celestine Star. And so I am a intuitive practitioner, but I've worked in pain management for over 30 years. I'm a ceremonial priestess. I'll tell a little bit about that. And have other businesses, Golden Star Productions. I have founded the Temple of Light and the Galactic Earth Council. So that's what I would say.
And you're an author as well.
I'm an author, yes, of Galactic Earth Council.
Okay.
You want me to say the whole book?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah,
No,
because I'll refer back to this one.
Okay. It's the Galactic Earth Council, the reintegration of the Starkin and the Earthkin.
It is an absolute privilege and honor to interview you for Deconstructing Sentience today.
Okay. Good. It's an honor to be with you, my dear.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, the moment I saw you, it was really great. I could feel your essence. You're really here to make change. So any way I can assist you. They told me to come out and speak, so here I am.
Thank you. Let's go into being a priestess.
Okay.
What does that mean?
To be a priestess is to serve the higher consciousness that is interfacing and is manifesting and expressing through everyone. It is the holy sanctum. It is that place that when you take your in-breath and you exhale and you feel life flowing through you. And it could be in the female form, could be in the male form from time to time, but mainly I serve the oneness. In my near-death experience, I went into the Godhead. And so from there, I serve that, which is extreme, supreme consciousness in whichever way I can.
And that was at a young age, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6 years old, exactly.
6 years old.
Yeah.
So it shaped your whole life.
It did. It shaped my life. It creates a pathway that's very narrow, where others would be romping about and doing things that would be normal to young adults. My work was just holding a space. I came back fully awakened to a consciousness and to energies, and I became very intuitive in that way. Other beings had guided me through that passage, and they were with me. And I had to literally shut down bits of channels in my life, understandings. If you came into the room, I'd know your whole life. I would know what you were going to say, why you were going to say it, which way you're going to go, your life lessons. And so I think my 12-strand or 144-strand DNA was fully engaged. So it left me in a narrow pathway, but I appreciate it now. First it was challenging, but then it opened up, and now it's most useful, so we can enjoy it more.
Wow, that's an incredible story. To go further into bridging the science to the spirituality, kind of what I like to do is bring the sky to the street.
Yes.
You also have, I was saying, like such incredible credentials academically and otherwise. Can you help me bridge the science to get to that higher aspect of unity consciousness?
Yes, absolutely. So scientifically, you can look at the sky. And if you're watchful, you'll begin to notice that there are times when another dimension will be interfacing with this one. And so you can be standing on the street, driving your car, whatever it may be, but suddenly there's something happening that's not man-made. That is not of a UFO even modality, but something even greater. And that can take your breath away. I have seen people stand in a parking lot when a beautiful red light appeared. It was like a standing rainbow of red light, and the sky turned red. It was I call it the red Tara. And everyone paused, and people were getting reports all the way to the ocean. What is this? It's the most beautiful thing I ever saw. Breathtaking, but it stopped their consciousness because they knew that something was beyond what is happening. In other ways, if you begin to put a pyramid in your room, or you set up a pyramid in the yard. You set up any kind of geometrical form. But generally, people who are beginning to awaken in consciousness will start working with the pyramidal or double tetrahedron shapes and forms. And this, to me, I've learned is kind of a signal of awakened consciousness. So an example is, I got to the high country in Middletown where I was living, and I decided, I bought a pyramid from Fred Bell, who was a dear friend of mine. Let's set it up and see what happens, right? And we were changing weather. The weather patterns changed, and different sleeping modalities happened. So there's an effect, when we're using geometrical forms, which is the interface between the electromagnetic grid, and you have sound, and you have light. So the electromagnetic grid, which is the patterning of these forms, is the basis of, there's a formula of mathematics between sound interfacing with light. And so this enacts upon our being. And so I actually witnessed the changing of weather, consciousness. People around me became very peaceful. People who came in to have healings with me, it amplified. It's an amplification. And then I got into scalar wave and such technologies like that. So,
Cool.
So you can play in different ways.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yes. And I showed you the work of Rafael Araujo, who's featured in the film.
Beautiful, yes.
And that's one thing that we're looking into is the sacred geometry.
Absolutely.
That has to do not only with consciousness, which might or might not, in your definition, I don't know, be synonymous with sentience, but I'm wondering what that has to do with our emotions and our feelings and this thing of being a sentient being and having the ability to feel. What does that have to do with the geometrical structures? Is there a link?
So as we said before, it's an interface. It's a dynamics. If you take the pyramid, it's dynamics. The dodecahedron, you have water. Water would be the connection between emotions, because the water is the truth. It speaks, it has an intelligence. It has a double movement, a vortexual movement. If you go to a stream, it's moving in different ways, and it can expand, it runs through us. We speak with the water that's in our bodies, our voice goes. But in geometrical forms, the dodecahedron holds the key for us in our emotions. So if you were to put a dodecahedron inside of a pyramid, which represents fire, the fire element, the consciousness, then you have water with fire, water within fire. So that's a lot of emotions, fiery, going off, the anger. Sometimes a person can't be calmed. You're a firecracker, they say. You're a whippersnapper. And so there is a complex in understanding, are you fire of water? Are you earth of water? Earth of water can be a little bit more depressed if you're looking at emotional complex, kind of muddied down, confused, not really understanding, you see. And so you can have earth of, you can have water of water, someone who's very sensitive, emotional, crying, discerning, and holding their heart. And, I love everyone. They're love bugs, really. But they're very sensitive to the truth. Because water, if you blow against it, if you vibrate it, it gives you patterns and synchronization. So it has an element of communication. So they're insensitive to, they're feeling the sensitivity of communication. When you speak, you have two voices. So when I hear your voice, I hear they are the same. But there may be someone who's speaking and maybe not speaking the truth. They're speaking one thing, but their other voice is saying another. Because I'm sensitive, you see. And there's the air. It's the ones that are chattery, bird-like, just going on and speaking. So, you can connect these to the different geometrical forms and then do a study in that. And that would eventually, you're going to study the fire, water, earth, and air separately, but then put water of fire, water of earth, water of air, you see, water of water, and then water of ether. which is that other dimensional field that takes you in. Icosahedron, yeah.
I've been digging deep to find the meaning of the link between the emotional sentient nature of it and the sacred geometry. So that really helps. Mm-hmm. And to bring it into the elements for me is really great because I have that visual now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you, what's your definition of sentience?
Sentience. Yes, of course. It is aliveness. It would be the vibration that is touching me. Something touches me. And first it is a feeling, but then within me, I discern how I'm going to feel that. So my aliveness and the walk that I've come through allows me to discern it in my own unique way. And so if you were to send me a feeling of love and I trusted you, then I would discern, I would open up to the feeling of aliveness that would be, yes, that feels good, and it would rise up into my heart and then into my eyes, and you would feel it because, you see through the eyes. It can return either from my heart, my hands, my eyes, my crown. Oh, you've blown me away. Yes. But if you send me love and I know I cannot trust you, there's going to be a simmering. I feel simmering emotion of like, I'm disappointed. Oh well. I might have compassion for you, but my sentience would tell me this is not true. Or I might say, is it true? I would have questions and doubts, and that would send me down a pathway that would hold space to have the answer come in some other way. And this is often where people are traumatized or troubled because the parents are giving them trouble. They're putting them down, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're causing pain and sorrow. And then the sentient part of the person, the child, would take it in and they would feel maybe a pinch of love. They know it's love in some way, but yet they cannot trust. And so it simmers inside and it changes in different ways while they're waiting. Don't you love me? I'm not feeling that. You're saying, this is tough love. I'm toughing you up for the world. But we know the world is already tough enough. So that's what I would say about sentience.
Beautiful. And you talked about the inner child, and one of the things I'm investigating is negative emotion and how extremely we all escape it. What is it about sentience, pure sentience, that is blocking us? Is it the negative emotions and the unwillingness to feel them? How does that go into shame and guilt and fear and some of these maybe unsavory sentient feelings? Is that linked in with our sentience too?
Yes, I believe that does deal with sentience too, the negative feelings. And here again is loving someone deeply from your own root self. And then to not have that love met in a way that one is needing. So beginning earlier or early in a relationship, and then sometimes relationships go for a long time. If you're a child, 15, 16, before you can really get a handle on what's happening from the parents' side. And maybe the parents are having challenges in life and they are causing pain and suffering. And so this feeling of simmering inside when one knows that one cannot trust. And they start to begin to have mental, so they're going from out of their heart into the mental. And so once you go out of the heart and you're in the mental fields, the rational mind begins to work on a story. They don't really love me. I'm not worth it. And this amplifies the sadness, the feeling of disappointment, and not having the tools to challenge the parent or not having the tools to challenge or to understand. So there's the stuffing of the feelings, or perhaps such in my life, we couldn't speak. Children were heard. They weren't, they were spoken to, but they were not heard. And this probably ended in the 60s. You know, most children were slapped down or told to go to your room, and I'm just giving an example. And then women have had their voices taken for centuries, of course, you know, being seen as objects of ownership and not being able to have a fair say. And I think we're going to be celebrating, you know, the women's suffrage coming up here in, you know, the end of February, right? 100 years. And we're still finding our voice. Where did we put it? There was anger. There had to be this, you know, I have nothing to lose. I have to let my emotions rise up and come out of me so I could speak. And now I speak and I'm here, you know. And so that is, I think it's a vital part of human nature, is to recognize that we have the full range of emotions. And when you study counseling or I do clinical hypnotherapy, they give you that range to look for in the person. And then we're shown that in the consciousness, which is not the subconscious, because the real true consciousness of the person is holding this information. And so if you bring up something in particular that someone wants to look at, I want to look at this. I want to look at why I can't move forward, why my life is blocked, why I'm suffering from alcoholism. When they're ready to look at it, then you can go into the conscious mind and take a look at the meter of emotion. But the emotions can sometimes be a protector and sometimes block the person, because they know if they let go of their anger, that's a God force. They could hurt someone. And then on another, if they cry too much, if they're so sad, they can cry themselves a broken heart. People die from a broken heart. I've seen it, you know. So that's what I would say.
You talked about the subconscious mind, and we did dip in there. But what does that have to do with our sentience?
The conscious mind records every aspect of your being. Every time you breathe, blink your eyes, think, both thoughts. So it holds an archive of your feelings. And it is the well from which we draw. One of the things that's different for humans is that we can bring forth compassion. We can bring forth joy. These are the higher elements of humanity. But in the well of our being, in the center of the power center here, and down into the womb, the creative center, we hold life. And our emotions are connected to our life. And it is an embodiment of who we are, but it is the consciousness. There's a cognitive awareness of something that has happened that triggers the emotion. You send me love. I trust you in my mind. It's open. My consciousness releases the joy or the happiness. You see? So that's what I would say.
And that brings us into the realm of polarity, one of my favorite subjects.
Okay.
If you put a lid on the anger, are you also putting a lid on passion?
Yes.
How does that work?
In looking at polarity with sentience, the universe, we're moving into what we call a universal principle. So all things move to opposites. And so it's like a pendulum swinging. When I hear people chanting, peace, peace, they're actually chanting war, because in order to have one thing, you have to have the polar opposites. And so, again, this would be an instant of, someone saying, I tell people to stay in the center, kind of don't be swayed emotionally to one side of joy, because then there will be sadness or anger. there's a pendulum. If you're in the emotional pendulum swing, most people go to the extreme, one or the other. So bringing them into balance, and when something exciting and really amazing happens, and if the person is the type of person who is extreme, that goes all the way, my life is ending today, and then, oh, I'm so excited. But if they can stay in a gentle, centered pose, then they tend to have less mood swings. So that's what I would say. There's an emotional connection to the personality of the person, the characteristic, whether it's in the geno, or if it's just the way they were brought up, they come through, and this is their character, to be kind of an extremist, you might say, emotional extremist. I would say also, as all things move to opposite, and you have the opposites, there's dualism in the world. And this is one of the places, it is not in all dimensions, you see. So it's a part of awakening to your consciousness as you are a baby, and there's a ball sitting there, and my side is red and your side is blue. As a child, you think you're seeing red, just like me. And then suddenly you awaken in your consciousness and you realize that the parent is seeing blue. You're seeing the world from another aspect. And you become aware of that. And we grow in consciousness, so we evolve. And so just as we are today, we have these factions of people who, Democrats, Republicans, yet there's two essence, but there's an evolution from there, is to come together as one. So we have the unifying factor, which is the higher mind, a higher frequency, a higher vibrational knowing. So that's what we wait for, or we guide towards. And that emotion of unification is fulfillment. It's like a fulfillment, like a warm nurturing. You feel nurtured, you feel loved. There's a oneness, a belonging, there's trust, So this is where we're hoping to move from.
Yeah, and get to a place of really valuing our sentience.
Yes.
Living these full lives that we're meant to live, yes, without putting a damper on anything.
That's right. Because you have your human side. The human side here in this dimension is based in suffering. There's drama, suffering, trauma. It's a world where we have to chop wood and carry water. Yes? And so we have to understand that. But when you bring divinity in, higher mind, higher consciousness, things move from a place of understanding in a different way, so that you move through the world without difficulties. You move through the world with a heightened sense of compassion and joy. So you're not going to go into the trauma fields. You're not going to surround yourself with people who can be dangerous, violent, angry. Or if you do, you have a way of working with them to bring them into peacefulness and balance.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that.
Me too. Bring it on. One of the themes of the film is coming out of escapism and addiction. What does sentience have to do with addiction? Is addiction the opposite of sentience in a way?
Addiction, it depends on which one you're speaking of. But a lot of addiction can be found in the DNA. And it interacts with something that's been done over and over, to the point that a particular set of geno clicks on. And it's like you've set the course. And this place within you, your receptors turn on in a particular way that sets the course for the day. And until that hypothalamus, which deals with the DNA and stuff, is reset, whether it's overeating, whether it's alcoholism, heroin. I worked a lot with heroin addicts, and cocaine, things that can be emotionally addicting, but not physically addicting, right? And so that's where emotion may come in, So emotional would be, I need this. So we can track that back to mother love. I need to be loved. I have never got accepted. There's some kind of emotional need, whether it was suckling on the mother's breast, smoking addiction, suckling on the mother's breast, getting hugs, nourishment, you see. And so these are emotional addictions as compared to genetic, which would be more like alcohol, opiates, heroin, the heavy duty ones that really just take over the physical body. And then it's almost like you're feeding the host. You're no longer the host of your own body. So I'm really grateful that they have different medicines and different tools for people to reach the depths of what is it that you really need? What are you covering over? Because often that need for nourishment has been going on for so long that the depths of the problem goes into what you would call the subconscious. It goes into the conscious mind, but it's not made aware of as much anymore because it's a lifestyle. Searching to be accepted, searching for love, searching for this, so these roots are there. And then the enactment comes from not being able to get what we need. And sometimes our personalities break off. And we're still 5 years old. We're still 7. We're still 15. We're still trying to be that. And these other parts of ourselves, whether they be 5 years old, they will step in and rule your relationship. They might drive it off the cliff, because the personalities don't have the heart to understand what's going on, to really take hold of whatever the problem is, and to acknowledge, I need my mother's love. And can you just hold me? And can you acknowledge that I come to you as a friend, and this is what has been happening to me. So if I just need a hug, please, can you just hug me? And then you can do the inner work, which is the alchemical work, where you hold your inner child. So then you're no longer grasping outside of yourself, where you meet the beloved. And in meeting the beloved, there's no more grasping. So you can always go in and take care of yourself and love yourself, as opposed to grasping and needing.
And I was blown away by your workshop yesterday because you took us to some juicy places. So I want to kind of bridge now to the higher realms of sentient being. Okay. And, you mentioned sentience and likened it to a bit of like a compass, or like helping us navigate in a way. Mm-hmm. If we allow the negative feelings to come and we take them as messengers, yes, is that an interface to greater cosmic intelligence?
It's yes, I think it's an interface. It could be, to have that understanding of mastering what it is that has brought us the pain and the sorrow. To understand that each of us comes in with a birth contract, which is either a personal agreement or you're coming in on a mission, or both. So let's say that the person chose the mother and father. It didn't just happen out of anywhere. Specifically, is it multi-generational? Am I coming in because my mother is my soul tribe? I'm going to follow her into this lifetime. And so there's different factors of why the person is there in the first place, in the deepness of the, dark night of the soul. But if we take that understanding and we acknowledge that, yes, I did a personal journey into this life to learn about rape. I'm accepting that I came in for that. But I mastered something. I mastered that no one can ever touch me, no matter. They cannot touch my soul. So there's different levels that someone learns. In alcoholism, it could be the loneliness, it could be the need, it could be the nourishment. But I learned the human side of that, you see. I've learned what it is to be a human in need of love, nourishment, whatever the sadness was. Maybe it was because the family was so dysfunctional. But I learned what it is to be in a family that was dysfunctional. Because my mind, seeing that, if you were looking at that and you're recognizing that should be a different way. Look at that consciousness that you learned. So you've mastered it. Now are you ready to let go of recreating that? And look what you put in your gree-gree bag. Because when you let go of what it is that is causing the pain and sorrow, and you're able to put it in the gree-gree bag as something you've mastered, now you can look into the world and say, do I want to help someone? Do I want to learn to be a counselor? Maybe I just keep it in my heart, but I have a whole horizon ahead of me, a new path. I'm stronger. I've walked through the fires of time, and I did not turn to ash. I am a diamond forged. Now, the emotional factor of that is you've got to let it go. It does reside, your emotions reside in the body. So generally, you're going to do a huge letting go. And you see people say, go out and scream to the wind. Yeah, but you feel so much better afterwards. Have that cry. The emotional, body comes out with tears and our voice and the shaking of our body and letting go and just literally wiping the sorrow off of the body and taking that off and feeling it, And once you are clear and you've acknowledged, then I usually say, okay, let's put some good energy back in. So now you begin to build. Now we're going to open ourselves to recognize that before you were born, you were a divine being. So if you're a divine being and you're stepping into your humanness and you have this new life, do you wish to accept that you are a divine being? Do you want to walk as a human again, asleep, or stand as a divine being? Most people will go for, yeah, I'm divine. I understand that now. And you stand in a state of divinity. You acknowledge your human nature, and then you begin to move your life forward in a grand and beautiful way. So that is what I would say.
Beautiful. I'll just let that plane pass. One more question, and anything else you want to add as well. What does our sentience have to do with moving into 5D, ascension?
Sentience in the realms of enlightenment is incredible joy. Now you're moving into the emotions of joyousness, eternal joyousness. There is nothing that is before you that is not of creation. To have that understanding, and generally when you get to that moment in your life, there is an intelligence that rises up within you that will take your breath away. So you become aware of the creational forces within you and the power, the extreme power that you have that fills this room, that fills the earth, that is in touch with the whole of creation. Qigong is very much like that. They go out to the edge of the cosmos. I bring it back to me. These are exercises and meditations that bring it back to me. Buddhism is about the stillness of the mind and the stillness and the clarity. And then, there's a vibration, there's a thought will play upon the vibration of the mind of creation. Yeah. And in this, it gives you an emotion of peacefulness, calm, delight, ecstatic. When these creational forces, you become attuned. Now you have your human self, your divinity, but then you have your galactic consciousness. You have a consciousness that is in tune and that can bring that energy here to bring change. And so this is why humanity is awakening to their galactic consciousness. They're awakening to the unification, the unified mind, and recognizing that the emotions being stabilized, not neutralized, but stabilized in calmness. And positivity, because you become responsible for putting into the group mind. The group mind is electromagnetic. It is just structures of the geomancy. And the group mind, if you put something negative into that, it reverberates through. So when we move to a state of the group mind, and you become illuminated, enlightened, empowered, you've done enough polishing the mirror. We've gone through the traumas, but we've mastered so much. And we're not so much looking for human story to master anymore. We're starting to interface with realities that are beyond this dimension. Suddenly you might have directive energies from higher intelligent beings. You find a lot of them here where we are today, people being directed to that. But when the emotion becomes very calm and peaceful, and you understand that the positivity of your words, your thoughts, and your actions play against the group mind of all creation and humanity. So what I am speaking today is reverberating out into the grid, into that geomancy, into the human electromagnetic field. It will be picked up by thousands and thousands, all of us, eventually. My voice goes in. Now, if I'm positive and other people say, you'll notice somebody who says, I just had a thought. It was really positive. I think I'm feeling really good right now. You see, we and they don't even realize it's not their thought. But just think, if we all put out, these positive, we're moving and shifting towards being more positive in the outlook of creation. We are the ones creating our world. We are the ones who are saying, oh my gosh, it's climate change, it's this and that, and thereby affecting our own climate. Consciousness can connect and change the weather. Consciousness, and we saw it with people meditating for the waters to come in Australia. I mean, there was a global meditation and the rains came. That was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
It was. I was paying attention.
And so we recognize, as you become more illuminated and enlightened, how much your thoughts and feelings, your emotions become paramount. So it's not a shutting down, but it is an amplification of the higher nature of emotions: joy, compassion, love, truth. And it brings ecstatic ecstasy, and I just go there just like that. Excitement, because that's what it is about. It really is joyousness, excitement, and seeing the world. And so my job is to hold that space, hold that frequency. I have it, then I pass it as much as I can to the next. And then I pass it to the next, and you pass it to the next. And then you hold it, and we all hold it. And suddenly we're going, gee, we can do something here. I've got 8 or 9 people. Let's set up a studio. Let's get the word out. You see? And so then it becomes something that's like a pebble in the water, and it goes out and ripples, but it connects to the whole group mind.
Beautifully put. And you told my story, and I had no idea that the unexpected byproduct of just stopping drinking, not being a drunk anymore, would result in me literally finding my own galactic being.
Yes.
And it keeps unfolding.
Yes.
As well.
I'm so excited for you.
Oh, thank you. Me too. And, well, I know you've had your own journey to that as well.
Yeah.
And I hope that this inspires others to, stay with their own hardships, perhaps, and understand the intrinsic value.
Yes, the intrinsic value. They are valuable. Once you can turn and say, I'm just loving this. I'm loving to understand what it is I mastered, and then they become empowered, and then they can let go of the pain. And through forgiveness, they can stop the chatter of the mind. And through the letting go, they allow the mind, the subconscious, to say, this is resolved, on to the next.
Yes. Absolutely incredible. What a beautiful interview. So much wisdom and grace is coming through you. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I'm just honored to be here with you, and I am dropping a pebble into this beautiful river, this pond, this river of life with you, and I ask that this be of benefit to all sentient beings and be of benefit to the all. So thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.